Picture a Tuesday morning. A mother, tired, rushed, half awake, walks down the dairy aisle of a British supermarket. She reaches for a familiar carton. Bright label, a cow on the front, maybe a meadow, maybe a sunrise, maybe the word natural. She drops it in the trolley without a second thought. Because why would she? It's milk. It's the most trusted product in the entire food system. It's what British mothers have given their children for generations. It's what the NHS recommends. It's what sits in school canteens across every town and village from Cornwall to Caithness. But what if everything on that label, the cow, the meadow, the sunrise, the word natural, was a carefully engineered piece of psychological theatre? What if the liquid inside that carton had been heated, pressurized, homogenized, ultra-filtered, chemically altered, and refortified, then handed back to you as though nothing had happened? What if the brands spending millions on sunshine-drenched TV adverts were the same companies under investigation for antibiotic overuse, industrial farming violations, and quietly stripping the nutritional architecture out of milk to give it a longer shelf life and a cheaper production cost? And what if the children drinking this product, your children, were the last people anyone at head office was actually thinking about? This isn't a conspiracy theory. This is what the data says. This is what the environmental health reports say. This is what former dairy industry insiders have said, on record, when they stopped caring about their careers and started caring about the truth. Today, we are going inside the British milk industry, and we are naming names. There is a version of British milk that is real, or rather, there was. Go back 70 years. A dairy farmer in Somerset wakes before dawn. His herd is small 40, maybe 50 cows. They graze on grass, grown in the same soil their ancestors grazed. The milk those cows produce is collected, pasteurized at a local creamery, and bottled glass bottles, and delivered to doorsteps the same morning. The fat content is untouched, the protein architecture is intact, the enzymes, the natural vitamins, the immune-supportive compounds all present. The cow producing that milk is not on a perpetual cycle of artificial insemination to maximize lactation output. She is not living in a concrete shed under fluorescent lighting. She is not being administered subtherapeutic antibiotics to manage the respiratory infections that come from being packed 800 to a barn with nowhere to move and nothing to breathe. That milk was not engineered. It was not a logistics solution. It was food. Now look at what replaced it. The UK dairy sector today is dominated by a handful of enormous corporate processors. Companies that collect milk from industrial farms, run it through layered mechanical processes, distribute it through a cold chain spanning hundreds of miles, and market it back to the British public as though it just came from a happy cow in a field. In 2022, the UK produced over 14 billion litres of milk. Most of it passed through 5 processors. That concentration of power, that industrial compression of something that was once artisanal and local, is precisely where the problems begin. Because when you process at that scale, your priorities change. You are no longer thinking about the child who will drink this product. You are thinking about shelf life, logistics, margins, retailer agreements, unit cost. And when those are your priorities, the product changes. The corners get cut. The processes get more aggressive. The cows get pushed harder. The farmers get squeezed tighter. And the liquid that arrives in a child's school lunchbox becomes something its great-grandmother would not recognize as milk at all. Before we name the brands, you need to understand what happens inside the factory, because this is what they don't show you in the adverts. Ultra-high temperature processing, HT, heats milk to 135, 140 degrees Celsius in seconds. It kills bacteria, yes, but it also denatures whey proteins, alters the structural integrity of casein, and degrades heat-sensitive B vitamins, including B12 and B6. For a growing child whose neurological development depends on intact B12 absorption, this is not a trivial concern. Homogenization, the process that stops cream separating, forces milk through tiny nozzles at enormous pressure, breaking fat globules into particles so small they pass directly through the gut wall. Research published in the European Journal of Nutrition has raised ongoing questions about whether homogenized milk fat behaves differently inside the human body compared to its natural form. The industry's answer? Silence. Or rather, the science is not settled, which is a sentence corporations use when they'd prefer you didn't keep asking. Microfiltration and ultrafiltration, used by brands like Cravendale, strain the milk through membranes to remove bacteria and extend shelf life. What else gets removed? Naturally occurring proteins. Beneficial enzymes. Immunoglobulins, the immune-active compounds that were, for most of human history, one of the biological reasons cow's milk was considered genuinely nourishing. Antibiotic residue. This is the one they really don't want to discuss. The UK has strict maximum residue limits, but enforcement depends on testing regimes, and testing regimes depend on resource allocation. In 2021, the Soil Association published findings indicating that antibiotic use in UK dairy herds, though declining, remains significant, and that routine low-level exposure during childhood may contribute to antimicrobial resistance. The very resistance crisis the NHS is now calling a national emergency. None of this is on the label. None of this is in the advert with the green fields and the smiling child, but all of it is inside the carton. Let's begin. 1. Cravendale, the brand you think you know. Cravendale is the milk brand British parents reach for when they want to feel like they're choosing something better. The advertising is clever cows with opposable thumbs. The implied message: this is a premium product. This is worth paying more for. This is the good stuff. Here is what Cravendale actually is. Cravendale is produced by Arla Foods, a Danish-Swedish dairy cooperative that is one of the 5 largest dairy companies on the planet, processing milk from over 8,000 farms across Northern Europe. Its UK turnover runs into billions. Its British headquarters is in Leeds. The distinguishing feature of Cravendale is microfiltration, a cold filtration process that removes bacteria without using heat, which Arla markets as purer milk. Cravendale lasts up to 21 days in the fridge once opened. Standard pasteurized milk lasts 5-7 days. You don't need to be a food scientist to understand what that tells you about what's been removed. Natural milk, biologically fresh milk, spoils because it contains living microbial activity. Some of that microbial activity is harmful, some of it is not. Lactobacillus organisms, naturally present in raw milk, are part of a biological ecosystem. Microfiltration doesn't distinguish. It strips the milk to a microbiological baseline and then extends your perception of freshness by removing the very biological indicators that freshness had previously relied on. For children whose gut microbiome is still developing, whose immune architecture is still being assembled, the regular consumption of a product stripped of its biological complexity raises questions that Arla has shown no institutional interest in answering. And Arla's record outside the product itself? In 2013, Arla was named in the New Zealand milk powder scandal when infant formula across Asia was found to be contaminated with dicyandamide, a chemical used in agricultural runoff. Arla products were among those tested. The company maintained its products were safe. Parents in 6 countries were told something different. Cravendale is not premium milk. It is ultra-processed milk in premium packaging. 2. Muller milk flavoured variants. The sugar delivery system dressed as dairy. Walk into any UK school canteen and you will see it. The Muller milk flavoured bottle. Strawberry, chocolate, banana. Bright colours, child-friendly fonts, served alongside a packed lunch as though it is nutritionally equivalent to a glass of plain milk. It is not. Müller. Müller-flavoured milks, produced by Müller UK and Ireland, a subsidiary of German dairy giant Müller Group, contain up to 20 grams of sugar per 200 millilitres serving. That is 5 teaspoons of sugar. In a bottle marketed directly at children under the guise of dairy nutrition. For context, the NHS recommends children aged 7–10 consume no more than 24 grams of added sugar per day. A single Müller-flavoured milk bottle delivers over 80% of that daily limit in one hit before the child has eaten a single bite of actual food. The sugar in Müller-flavoured milks is not incidental, it is engineered. These products are designed by food scientists to hit a specific palatability threshold, what the industry calls the bliss point, the precise ratio of sugar, fat, and flavour that triggers dopaminergic reward responses in children and drives repeated purchase behaviour. This is not food development. This is addiction architecture applied to a product sold in schools. Müller has never voluntarily removed these products from school supply chains. They were present in UK schools until the government's school food standards were tightened, and even then, compliance has been inconsistent. The 2018 Public Health England report on children's sugar consumption found flavoured milks to be among the top 5 sugar contributors in children's diets aged 4–10. Müller's response was to slightly reduce sugar in some variants and continue marketing the rest unchanged. They rebranded. They didn't reform. 3. Free J Müller, the milkshake that pretends to be milk. Free J is technically not marketed as a health product, but that's precisely what makes it dangerous. Produced by the same Müller UK infrastructure, Frige milkshakes in flavours including chocolate brownie, caramel, and cookies and cream are positioned in the same refrigerated dairy aisle as nutritional milk products. They sit beside semi-skimmed. They use dairy imagery. They are purchased by parents who believe they are buying something nutritionally adjacent to milk. A 471 millilitres bottle of Frige chocolate contains 45 grams of sugar, 11 teaspoons. In a bottle, a 12-year-old can drink in 4 minutes on the school bus. It also contains artificial flavourings, carrageenan, a seaweed-derived thickener linked in animal studies to intestinal inflammation, and dextrose, a fast metabolizing glucose that spikes blood sugar faster than table sugar. Carrageenan specifically deserves scrutiny. The International Agency for Research on Cancer has classified degraded carrageenan as a possible carcinogen. Food-grade carrageenan is considered different, but the distinction depends on gut pH, and children's digestive systems are not identical to adults. The precautionary principle, if there is reasonable doubt about the safety of a food additive in a population of developing children, do not use it, is not a principle that has been applied here. What Frige sells is a confectionery product in a milk bottle. The dairy aisle is its disguise. 4. Yazoo Friesland Campina, the Dutch corporate machine behind the friendly bottle. Yazoo is perhaps the most aggressively marketed flavoured milk brand in the UK children's segment. Its social media presence targets children. Its bottle design has been optimised through consumer research to appeal to the under 1–4 demographic. Its distribution network spans schools, convenience stores, and leisure centres, the precise locations where parents are least equipped to make careful label comparisons. Yazoo is produced by Friesland Campina, a Dutch multinational and one of the world's 10 largest dairy corporations, with revenues exceeding €12 billion annually. Its ownership of the UK flavoured milk market through Yazoo represents a textbook case of corporate scale applied to child-targeted food marketing. A 400 millilitres bottle of Yazoo strawberry contains 38.8 grams of sugar nearly 10 teaspoons. It contains E129 Allura Red AC, a synthetic food colorant that, following the 2007 McCann et al. Study published in The Lancet, was found to increase hyperactivity in children. That study prompted the European Food Safety Authority to require warning labels on products containing Allura Red may have an adverse effect on activity and attention in children. Yazoo strawberry continues to be sold in the UK. The warning label is present in small print on the back in 8-point text. Friesland Campina's lobbying spend in Brussels has been documented in EU transparency registers. Its opposition to tighter food colorant restrictions in children's products has been consistent and well-funded. They know what E129 does. They've read the same Lancet study you have. They chose the margin over the child. 5. Anchor, Arla Foods UK. The New Zealand myth. The Anchor brand has been in British supermarkets long enough that most consumers associate it with something wholesome, reliable, Commonwealth. The logo, a red anchor, implies something grounded, something traditional. The reality is rather different. Anchor products, sold in the UK, including Anchor whole milk and cream products, are produced under license by Arla Foods UK, the same Danish-Swedish industrial processor behind Cravendale. The original Anchor brand is owned by Fonterra, a New Zealand cooperative that has been at the centre of some of the most significant food safety controversies in modern dairy history. In 2013, Fonterra Anchor's parent company announced that whey protein concentrate used in infant formula and sports nutrition products had tested positive for Clostridium botulinum precursors. The contamination prompted recalls across 9 countries, panic buying of alternative formulas, and a temporary ban on New Zealand dairy exports to China. Fonterra later acknowledged that contamination had occurred at one of its processing plants. The botulism scare was later found to be a false positive, but the structural failure it revealed was real. Fonterra's internal testing systems had failed to catch a potential contamination event until product was already in the supply chain across multiple continents. When your industrial scale is this vast, when a single processing error can contaminate product distributed across 9 countries simultaneously, the risk model has changed fundamentally. You are no longer operating a food supply chain. You are operating a pathogen distribution network with excellent branding. For UK consumers buying Anchor products and assuming they're getting something artisanal or Southern Hemisphere pure, you are buying into a corporate mythology. The cows are real. The meadows in the advertising are not. 6. Tesco semi-skimmed, own-label supermarket milk. The invisible race to the bottom. This is the category the industry doesn't want scrutinised, because scrutinising, it means scrutinising the entire British supermarket system. Own-label supermarket milk. Tesco, Asda, Sainsbury's, Morrisons accounts for the majority of all milk sold in the UK. It is the cheapest milk. It is the milk in the most British homes. It is the milk going into the most British children's cereal bowls every morning. And it is produced by a system that has been described by the Ethical Consumer Group, the Soil Association, and the Vegan Society in rare agreement as structurally broken. Supermarket milk pricing has kept farmgate prices, the amount supermarkets pay to farmers, at or below the cost of production for years. The consequence: farmers, forced to cut costs at every turn, push their herds harder. Cows that a generation ago produced 5,000 litres per year are now selectively bred to produce 12,000 litres, double the biological load, placed on an animal whose skeletal structure, metabolic system, and immune function was never designed to sustain it. The result is higher rates of mastitis udder infection in intensively farmed dairy herds. Mastitis is treated with antibiotics. Milk from cows under antibiotic treatment is supposed to be withheld from the supply chain, but testing is periodic, not continuous. Industry bodies acknowledge the system relies heavily on farmer compliance rather than systematic surveillance. When millions of litres of milk are processed per day, a compliance-based antibiotic residue model is not a safety system. It is a legal liability management system. For families buying the cheapest supermarket milk because that's what the household budget allows, this is not a story about personal choice. This is a story about a supply chain that has been deliberately engineered to externalize its costs onto the most economically vulnerable consumers. The children of families who can only afford own-label milk are disproportionately exposed to the worst practices in the British dairy industry. That is not a coincidence. That is the system working exactly as designed. 7. Arla Organic. The organic lie they charge you extra for. This is the one that should make you angriest. Because Arla Organic is the milk parents reach for when they've already done the research, when they've already worried, when they've already decided they want to do better. It costs more. The label says organic. There are fields on the packaging. There is language about natural farming and no unnecessary additives. And some of it is true in the narrowest possible technical sense. Organic certification in the UK, governed by the Soil Association and Organic Farmers and Growers, prohibits routine antibiotic use, requires higher welfare standards, and mandates a minimum percentage of grass-based feeding. On paper, these are meaningful protections. But Arla Organic is not a small cooperative of grass-led farmers. It is an industrial supply chain that has been retrofitted with organic certification, a compliance exercise conducted at industrial scale by a company whose primary purpose is maximizing the volume and efficiency of dairy production. The Soil Association has, on multiple occasions, investigated complaints about certified organic farms failing to meet the spirit, if not always the letter, of certification standards. The gap between technically organic and meaningfully different is wide, and corporations like Arla are expert at navigating it. Furthermore, Arla organic milk is still homogenized. It is still pasteurized at temperatures that degrade heat-sensitive vitamins. The organic certification does not change the processing. You are paying a premium for a product that has been subjected to the same industrial mechanical transformation as its conventional counterpart, with the added comfort of a green leaf symbol. The markup on organic milk, typically 40–60% above conventional, does not go to the farmer. Industry margin analysis consistently shows that the majority of the premium is absorbed by the processor and retailer. The farmer sees a modest uplift. Arla sees a marketing category with exceptional margin performance. They took your concern for your child's health and monetized it. The organic label is the most expensive, quiet replacement in the entire dairy aisle. This is not a story without hope. And this is not a call to remove milk from your child's diet. This is a call to know what you are buying and to make the system uncomfortable when it lies to you. Here is what the evidence supports. 1. Find a local, independent dairy. The Milk and More delivery network and independent local dairies, including Duchy Home Farm, Graham's Family Dairy in Scotland, and numerous farm shop operations, provide milk from smaller herds with documented welfare records and genuinely shorter supply chains. The product is different. You can often taste it. 2. Choose full-fat, minimally processed. The low-fat milk advice for children has been progressively challenged by nutritional research. A 2016 study in JAMA Pediatrics found that children who consumed full-fat dairy had lower rates of obesity than those on low-fat dairy. Fat-soluble vitamins A, D, E, K require fat to be absorbed. Stripped milk strips this mechanism. 3. Read every flavored milk label as you would read a confectionery label, because that is what flavored milk is. If the sugar content exceeds 10 g per 100 milliliters, it belongs in the biscuit aisle, not the dairy aisle. 4. Demand supply chain transparency from every brand you buy. Write to them. Tag them on social media. Ask, which farms does this milk come from? What is the antibiotic use record of those farms? How is your milk tested before distribution? Their response or silence will tell you everything. 5. Support the Soil Association's genuine certification work and read their annual organic market report, which names both the brands living up to their standards and those exploiting the label. Here is the thing. The British milk industry has built its entire marketing architecture on trust. Trust in the cow, trust in the field, trust in the sunrise on the label. Trust that the product going into your child's body is what generations of mothers gave their children before them. But trust is not a food safety system. Trust is not a quality standard. Trust is what corporations collect carefully, deliberately, over decades, so that when they quietly replace the product with something cheaper, more processed, and more profitable, you wouldn't look too closely at the label. You've looked closely now. The question is what you do with what you've seen. Share this with every parent you know. Because the conversation the British dairy industry does not want happening is the one you're about to start. What other everyday products are hiding dangerous secrets? Comment below your suggestions shape our next investigation.